Good morning, everybody. And yes, I'll introduce myself, and realising my potential, I have sort of started on the journey of pursuing non-executive director and board positions. So as a way to continue my professional development. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about Melbourne Water this morning and who we are, what we do, and then what we've done with performance and the journey that we're on and still on. But before I start, I thought it might be good to think about what we mean when we say a high-performance culture or high-performance organisation. So we've kind of used the Gallup model. Has everybody, hands up if you've sort of heard of that? Yeah, so a number of you. So the Gallup model has 5 key themes in terms of what makes up a high-performing organisation. The first of those is to implement an effective performance management process. You know, one that has clear standards, goals, that has alignment between the strategies of the organisation and the individuals who do the work and their goals. So complete alignment, transparency, which really is the definition of what shared goals is all about. The second is creating empowerment so that employees do have accountability for their goals, their performance plan and their development. Increasing leadership at all levels is the third focus area in the Gallup model, to ensure that leaders and employees are having effective performance conversations, which builds trust. And, you know, and the theory is that you get better outcomes as a result of that. And then the fourth is that you increase communication and collaboration through all of those processes. And the fifth is that you enhance training and development. So as we go through my presentation, you can be the judge as to whether or not which of those 5 things you think we've achieved or on the way to achieving. So who are we? This is our vision of enhancing life and livability for Melburnians. And we do that through 3 key themes: healthy people, healthy places and healthy environment. So we are owned by the Victorian government, but we are a statutory authority. We have our own board and obviously leadership team, of which I am a part. We work with all key stakeholders, of which there are various, including the community, on such challenges such as urbanisation, a growing population, which puts enormous pressure on Melbourne Water assets. Climate change is another one. Technology and changes in technology, and also changing customer expectations about utilities and particularly water. These are our values: care, integrity and courage. So we've had these in place now for about 3 years. And these are our guiding principles, all right, in terms of how we treat each other, how we work with our stakeholders to achieve our outcomes. And so this is what we do. We supply water, fresh, clean, quality water. So Melbourne has, as does Australia really, some of the world's best quality water, something we should all be very proud of, but we do kind of take it for granted. We do this through managing catchments, dams that capture water, treating water, transferring water throughout the system to 4 million people in individual households across Melbourne. We also treat sewage, something we don't like to always talk about and think about, but we do, It happens, people. We have 400 kilometres of sewers, 9 pumping stations, 2 treatment plants, and over 320,000 million litres of sewage is treated, including trade waste, on an annual basis. We recycle water. So we have different classifications of recycled water. We protect rivers and creeks. So we are the caretakers of the Port Phillip and Western Port region in Melbourne, and we work to protect those regions and keep them safe for the wildlife that habitates those waterways. We also manage flooding. So we work very closely, so one of the key stakeholders is local councils, to reduce flood risk, and we look after 1,400 kilometres of drains around Melbourne. We are very passionate about making Melbourne a better place to live, and of course, I know I'm in Sydney, but I'm sorry, the greatest city in the world. So we do want to maintain our image and our where we sit in that spectrum of the most livable cities. So this is sort of our people. We have 1,000 employees. We are what I would term quite a professional organisation. And but made up of lots of engineers, lots of scientists, more PhDs floating around there than I've ever worked with in my career. But we also have operators and technical experts, technicians, and obviously the corporate support functions. The average age of employees is 42, so completely understand the concept of silver tsunami. The average tenure is around 8 years, and we have a lot of people who have worked for the organisation 40 years and been here a short time. And we also work with around 3,000 contractors, so we do outsource a number of maintenance works across our system. So what did we set out to achieve? So this was our vision, and so one of the things that I would point out is that I think you've got to be clear about what it is you're trying to achieve. What is your end goal or your end aim? And that you're able to articulate that and that you engage the business. And from my perspective as the head of people and capability, you also have to engage your own team so that they can advocate for the change that you're trying to create across the organisation. I think that's also very important. So this was our vision. We did want to achieve alignment. We saw that as a huge opportunity. We had feedback through employee engagement surveys that employees didn't necessarily understand how what they did, impacted what the organisation was doing. We also wanted to build capability around effective conversations. Melbourne Water is a very nice place to work. Very nice people, very passionate about what they do. You don't have the internal politics that, when I've worked in the private sector for many, many years, and often you do find that sort of internal competition, but you don't, I have not experienced that at all at Melbourne Water. And so we needed to be able to have those sorts of challenging conversations and give each other feedback. So that was a difficult thing to do where people just naturally tend towards being nice. Also, we needed our people to own their careers and their professional development and not wait for someone else to do it for them. And we obviously needed to do some work on our process and system. So also in that same engagement survey, only 22% of employees thought that the performance appraisal system was effective. So big opportunity. So this is sort of what we set out to do. So to go from what we had and clearly articulate what that was and move to a different future. So this is what we set out to do. We needed one simple process for everyone. So we've gone from having two different processes, one for managers and one for employees. The employee one really didn't have a lot of rigour attached to it, have to say. So one way and the same way for everyone, and obviously a lot simpler, a lot less time consuming, a lot more interactive, both with the system but with the manager as well. Two-way communication was also important, so that this was not seen as something that happens to you from the top down, that you are, because you own your performance, it is your performance, they are your goals, and you need to be able to also, put into the system your progress and check in with your manager and update your manager about what's working, what's not working, and so forth. So to build more trust and to build more open communication. And this is our goal cascade and alignment. So at the top, I think it's a bit fuzzy. We had a bit of a problem trying to get this to make it bigger. Our strategic direction, enhancing life and livability. And, we are an organisation that does spend a lot of time in strategy land. All right? So we have 50-year land use strategies. We are the state's second largest land owner to the Victorian government. So we own a lot of land, 50-year land use strategies, 20-year sewerage strategies, this strategy, that strategy, and whatever strategy. So lots of those. All right, and a corporate plan, which is an external-facing document to the public and government. So what we needed to do was implement a process that got people focused on what they were going to deliver this year, in accordance with, something that is a very long-term, strategic view. So we implemented an annual business plan process. So that process occurs at the Melbourne Water level, and it also occurs at each business group. All right? So these are the things that we're going to focus on, and then that cascades down into those individual performance goals. So in the system itself, all right, people enter in their performance goals, and they're able to align those goals with their business group goals, which are then aligned to the Melbourne Water goals. So total alignment, and that has been extremely effective. So this is the third year where we've had the business planning process, and that process came first and the performance system came second. So the very important that I think you've got to have this process sorted out in your organisation. What is, what fits your purpose? Otherwise, you're not really ever going to achieve that alignment and the transparency, visibility. So people can see their managers' goals, managers can see employees' goals, managers can see their manager goals, all the way up through the hierarchy of the organisation. What else can I tell you about that? I think that's probably enough at this stage. I'll get into a little bit more detail. But I think, this is a really good diagram and description of the shared goals. It's not easy to achieve, I'm not saying that. The first year we did the business planning process, lots of resistance to change. Why are we doing this? And, this is just more work, and, the usual sort of feedback you get around stuff like that. But I have to say, this year being the third year, it was so easy. So, and a good way to measure that is when the leadership team, we get in a room together and we allocate half a day to review all of the business group business plans and approve them, and we were done in an hour. So it's a very easy, simple process, and that's what's important. And so this is what we came up with. We call it POD. So, pod on and pod you and, all of that. But POD very simple, easy to remember, has resonated really well with our employees. So the P is for performance, the O is for opportunity, and the D is for development. So the P in terms of performance, which is about setting and resetting expectations, SMART goals. I have to say we've still got a bit of a way to go. Not all of them are particularly smart at this point. So that again is part of the education process. And a real focus on how people are utilising their strengths and continuing to build on their strengths is a part of what we've set out to do. And this is about people performing well in their current role. And then the O is about opportunity for growth, all right? So how can people continue to grow their career and what opportunities exist for them across the organisation to do that? And for those who are identified as talent, what particular talent development opportunities exist for them to continue to build their future in the organisation? And the D is development. So we also have implemented the Cornerstone learning module, which we call the Learning Tank. And so that is a resource that people have available to them, to look at learning and development opportunities. And they're also their individual development plans. And this is what the Learning Tank looks like. And so that's just sort of a front page there, where people can go in and look at various, modules of learning and development. So some learning and development, because you can imagine in our industry, it is a very, what would be the word, compliance-driven, with lots of legislation and, we've got the Environmental Protection Agency keeping an eye on us, and we have the Department of Health keeping an eye on us, so there's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of KPIs and regulation and stuff like that. So there is a fair bit of training that needs to be done just so that people know how to work safely in terms of, the risks that they come across in terms of their jobs, but also to be compliant with those regulations. But a lot of other training and development is also then able to be accessed by people depending on what it is that they want to learn and the way that they want to manage their career. So a simple approach, very easy for people to understand, a continuous cycle. We still have to run an end-of-year process, and so a pod review, an end-of-year pod review. We are hoping to remove that in the near future, and so it truly will be a continuous process. Obviously, understanding that you do finish one financial year and you do go into another financial year, so people need to reset goals based on that new financial year business plan. We have check-ins, all right? Employees can initiate check-ins. I think I mentioned that before, as well as managers. But the language we use around, how people are performing. So we have, 5 ways in which we report that. One of those is you're off track. Pretty clear what that means. Another is that you're getting up to speed. Another is that you're on track, or you're kicking goals, or you're smashing it. So very simple language that is very clear, what I would say non-HR typical ways in which we would describe performance. As part of the change process, being very clear about what is in it for the business, for the manager and for the employee, and being able to articulate that and having a change plan and communications plan that supports this change that you're able to articulate. So what we wanted was one single source of truth, which we have in the system. We have better data, we have better data tracking. We've come from a completely paper-based system where there is no way at all where you can track that. And people will say, yes, of course I have a performance plan, or, of course I have a development plan, and, so telling you one thing. So lots of reporting here as well, which is really good. So at any point in time, you can get a report on how goals, are they on track within your team? And a general manager can look at that from across their whole department, their whole division, and the MD can have a look at it. Mind you, we probably do provide the MD with the data, I'm thinking. But those regular conversations, goal progress, and so that's what's in it for the various parts of the organisation. And then what we were able to also articulate is what's different. How is it different? What will you see? What will you feel? How will you, and what you need to do and how you need to do it. So, and this gets me to, so there's three things that I think are important. One I've mentioned already, which is around vision and being able to clearly articulate that, which is part of, what are you doing? What's in it for people and what's different, but also very strong change management and communications. People knew months in advance that this was coming. It was not a surprise, where we said, well, next month you're now going to have to go to these training sessions. So lots of, communication up to, and obviously strong training to support, people understanding how to use the system, which is very important. We did have a business reference group that we checked in with all the time. End user testing with real users. And ongoing coaching for managers post-training. So that was also very important. So not just a training event, but that full support post that. The other third point, all right, so vision, change management is project management. And I don't mean from Cornerstone or your partner, I'm talking within your HR team. So, my observation from a lot of HR departments is that they don't have strong project management capability. And one of the things you need to own is how you manage this project. Right? And so project management capability is extremely important, and I'm very fortunate that I have a very strong project manager on my team who's sitting here in the room, Michael. And this would not have been done without, the clear articulation of the vision and the project management and the change management. So this is what's working. We're getting lots of great feedback. One of the other ways, so this is from our engagement survey, but also we rolled out to managers first, and that was about sort of May last year, and we were intending to roll out to the rest of the employees around about last month. It was so successful with the managers that they asked us to bring that forward. And we did, and we rolled it out in February this year. So this is, we've finished a full cycle, all right, 1 year, and this is going into our second year. And so this is some of the results. 94% of all employees did have goals in pod and did have, in terms of where they were at with those goals. Because obviously not all goals are achieved. That's a fact. And 90% completed the end-of-year review. We have now implemented My Profile. So in the opportunity part of the system, people are able to put in their profile like they would if it was on LinkedIn. So this is sort of an internal, process for that. And also the Opportunity Explorer, where people will be able to, they can either put up an opportunity, like we have an opportunity for someone to work on a project, if they can have these skills, that'd be great. It's for 6 weeks, blah, blah, blah. Or they can go in and look at opportunities and say, well, that would actually be fantastic, and that's part of my development plan, so that'll be great. So 70% of people have development plans registered, so we're able to measure these things. You know, you've actually got data that tells you something. A big focus for 17-18 this financial year, because we're moving into the embed phase of the project. So moving out of implementation last year into embed, a number of activities planned for embed, and one of those needs to be about SMART goals I spoke about, but also about people putting into the system their conversations. So they're telling me they're having them. Where to from here? Obviously embed and continue to bring to life the performance. We are going down the path of implementing the Cornerstone Talent and Succession module, so that's our next step. And, you know, the competency banks. And one of the other important things that we've just launched is our Career Development Centre. So this is about Melbourne Water becoming a learning organisation. And so, you know, part of high performance culture, but now, you know, moving and morphing into a learning organisation. So we have launched the Career Development Centre. It has 6 targeted streams of learning to enable our people to grow their careers and achieve their full potential. And we think this is directly related to our strategic direction of enhancing life and livability. The organisation will not be able to achieve its goals if the people within the organisation are not able to deal with the current and future challenges that we face. Those ones around climate change, growing population, urbanisation, etc. Real issues and real time. So that's why we're doing it. And so in conclusion, I think from a Gallup high-performing, culture, effective performance management process, I would give a tick. Employee empowerment, we've started the journey but have more to do. And the O, the D is doing part of that, but the O will finish that process. Increasing leadership capability at all levels, again, we've started that, but it's still a journey. Increased communication and collaboration, same thing, started, but it's still a journey. And enhancing training and development. And we've done a lot around that as well with the learning tank. So I can't be up here and not say thank you to Cornerstone, and also thank you to our partner Future Knowledge. But I also would thank my team, because I think it has been a truly remarkable partnership that has delivered significant outcomes for the organisation and is making a real difference. But it is still a journey. I don't think it ever actually ends. So thank you very much for your time.